Okay, well here you see the standard Mongoose in bits. Sorry about the mess, it's just random here. Yeah, so here we have the Mongoose. It's in bits for a reason. And these are the bearings, these are all the pivot bearings. As you can see, they're totally trashed. Which is not surprising given its age. That's one thing to bear in mind when buying a used full suspension bike, is there may be hidden costs. Even if there's no play in the bearings, then they can still be on their way out. There can be no obvious signs right away. So yeah, bear that in mind when buying a used full suspension bike. If you get this job done at a shop, it can cost £150 and up. Some are a bit cheaper, like an Orange 222 only has 2 bearings. They're quite an easy job to do, assuming the bearing isn't rusted to the frame, because a lot of the time, just the nature of the beast really, a bearing is made of steel and frames are aluminium. There can be an anodic cathodic reaction between the two, and the bearing can actually get pretty badly stuck in there. That can even happen between similar metals such as this bolt. This is one of the bolts out of the Mongoose, and this is the bearing. That bolt is well and truly stuck in there. I'm going to have to try and cut that bearing off of there somehow. This is new bearings put in it. I'm just lining it up at the minute. You may also need to buy hardware like this. This is hardware, these are spacers. And for some used frames, depending on the age, this stuff might not be available anymore. You might not be able to get hold of it. You might be searching eBay for months, weeks or days on end, especially if you're older retro full suspension bikes. So you know, just bear that in mind when buying a full suspension bike. Obviously I do this for a bit of fun. I knew this thing was a real basket case when I got it. I had done a bit of pimping on it with the handlebars, the forks and the brakes, but unfortunately now I need to pull it apart and do the bearings. I knew that anyway, but I didn't have any bearings to hand, and I wanted to throw it together just to see what it would ride like and have a rough idea of what this thing was going to be like. Now we know. But we do need to do the bearings because it was making squeaking and squawking noises, and the rear end was wagging like a dog. Wagging more than a Labrador over a Sunday dinner, let's just say that much. Yeah, so chuck a new set of bearings in it and we'll be good to go, because yeah, look at the state of that. That's, yeah, they were dead already, but they didn't have any play, and obviously they now have play. Likewise, if you carry on running a, you know, this doesn't really matter, this was relatively cheap, but if you have a more expensive bike and you run it to the point where the bearing seize completely, they can actually turn in the frame, and that can eat where the bearing sits, and then you're never fixing that without replacing that part of the frame, or getting it welded, machined, heat treated and all that kind of malarkey if it's something really retro and really rare. That's a lot of money obviously. Anyway, that concludes this video.